My name is Sarah Wynn, 29 years old. The chandelier above the long oak dining table flickered like it was nervous too. My father's voice cut through the low hum of polite laughter. Tonight, he declared, raising his glass, we celebrate our real daughter, the successful one. The words landed with surgical precision. I felt them split the air, then me. Forks paused. Glasses chimed faintly as everyone turned toward my sister. Emily smiled with that perfect blend of modesty and pride she'd perfected since childhood. Dad, she said, laughing softly, you don't have to say that. Oh, I do. His grin widened. The world needs to know the difference between ambition and, well, wasted potential. His eyes drifted toward me, deliberate, the way people glance at a painting they wish they hadn't bought. The table laughed. The sound was brittle. My mother dabbed at her eyes with her napkin, pretending to be moved. I saw it for what it was, complicity wrapped in etiquette. I sat quietly, my husband Ryan beside me, calm and unreadable. His hand rested on my knee under the table, steady and warm. The suit he wore wasn't expensive, but it looked like authority. It wasn't the fabric, it was the posture. Still doing that freelancing thing? Emily asked, her tone dipped in honey and poison. Something like that, I said lightly. She tilted her glass, smirking. Well, we can't all be vice presidents of Parker and Hall, right? Exactly, my father boomed, tapping his glass against hers. You've made this family proud, Emily. The applause returned, a rehearsed chorus. My mother's gaze met mine for half a second, then slid away, quick as guilt. Ryan leaned in, his voice low enough for only me to hear. You sure you want to sit through this? Yes, I whispered back. I want to see how far they'll go. The waiter poured champagne. The bubbles rose faster than my pulse. To Emily, my father said again, and to the company that made her who she is. The table echoed him like a prayer. Except Ryan, except me. The sound faded, replaced by the static hum of my own heartbeat. I could feel the heat behind my ribs, the years of dismissal crystallizing into something sharp. It wasn't new. It was a lifetime pattern dressed in designer tableware. When I was 8, my painting won a district prize. He forgot to come. When I was 16, my business proposal took second place. He said, maybe stick to hobbies. When I failed my first startup, he laughed. Some people aren't meant for risk. Every time I believed him a little less. Now I believe nothing he said. Ryan's thumb brushed my knee. A silent cue. The moment we had rehearsed privately, in whispers and half smiles, was near. My father raised his glass once more, basking in his own speech. And let's not forget Parker and Hall, he said, voice swelling. The company that built this family's legacy. I turned toward him, calm, collected. Funny thing about Parker and Hall, I said softly. It changed ownership last week. The laughter died mid-breath. He frowned, glass halfway to his lips. What are you talking about? Ryan leaned forward, his voice even. She's saying we bought it. Silence. Utensils froze. Emily blinked. Once, twice. You're lying. You'll find out Monday morning at your board meeting, Ryan replied. We'll be there. My father's glass hit the table with a sharp clink. You what? I met his glare with calm precision. You said you were proud of your real daughter, I said. You might want to be careful who you call real, Dad. Turns out the one you overlooked just signed your paycheck. The stillness that followed was heavier than any sound. Emily's jaw tightened. You think this is funny? No, I said. I think it's overdue. The air shifted. My mother's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her water. Sarah, sweetheart, this must be some misunderstanding. Ryan's tone stayed even, like steel under silk. There's no misunderstanding. The acquisition paperwork was finalized last Friday, every share, every asset. My father's knuckles went white around his napkin. You don't have that kind of money. Ryan smiled faintly. You'd be surprised what people accomplish when they stop trying to impress you. Emily laughed, too loud, too high. You're bluffing. The board would have told me. Ryan shrugged. Check your email. She fumbled for her phone. Her manicured thumb scrolled quickly, then stopped. The color drained from her face. What is this? She whispered. The ownership transfer notice, Ryan said. It's official. My father stood, trembling with fury. You went behind my back. No, I said. You pushed me out long ago. You made sure I had nothing left to lose. I just learned to build quietly while you were busy laughing. He slammed his fist against the table, the silverware jumping. You think this makes you better than us? No, I said softly. It makes me free. Emily's voice cracked. You couldn't stand that I finally made them proud, so you had to ruin everything. Ruin? I tilted my head. You spent years treating me like a footnote in your success story. I didn't ruin your life, Emily. I just stopped letting you write mine. Ryan's tone sharpened, calm yet cutting. For what it's worth, we didn't buy Parker and Hall to destroy it. We bought it to rebuild what your father nearly wrecked with ego. My father turned on him. You don't talk to me like that. Ryan didn't blink. You've spent your life confusing fear with respect. That ends tonight. The words landed like thunder. I looked at my father, and for the first time, I didn't see power. I saw panic. The kind of panic that only comes when the mirror finally tells the truth. Dad, I said, my voice low, even. This isn't about revenge. It's about reality. I'm showing you what happens when you underestimate someone who refuses to stay small. He stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked out, his steps uneven. Emily followed, but not before leaning close enough for only me to hear. You'll regret this. The door closed behind them with a sound that echoed like closure. I exhaled slowly. My hand trembled slightly when I reached for my glass. Ryan's hand found mine. You handled that perfectly, he said quietly. I looked at the empty chairs where my family had sat, the places that had once defined my worth. It's strange, I murmured, how peace doesn't always feel peaceful. He smiled. Give it time. Outside, rain began tapping against the windows, soft and rhythmic, like the city was applauding in secret. For the first time in years, I didn't shrink under their judgment. I watched it dissolve. Tomorrow, the real storm would begin. But tonight, I let the silence stay. Because for once, silence didn't sting. It shimmered. The morning arrived without apology. The city wore its usual expression. Neutral, busy, indifferent, while our house felt like the quiet center of a hurricane. Ryan brewed coffee in that unhurried way of his, the machine's hiss and drip the only sound until the front gate camera chimed. On the screen, my father's black SUV, Emily's white coupe, snapping in behind it like a punctuation mark. Ryan glanced over the rim of his mug. Right on schedule, he said. Pride never sleeps in. I didn't answer. It wasn't dread I felt. It was something colder, cleaner, like standing on a cliff you've already decided to climb down from. When the bell rang, it wasn't timid. It was a battering ram. I opened the door to my father's face, the color of bad decisions. Emily swept past me first, the air sharpened by her perfume. My father followed, gripping a folder, thick with printed emails he didn't yet understand. You think this is funny? He barked, not even bothering with hello. You humiliate me in my own home, and now you... This is our home, I said evenly, stepping aside, and there's nothing funny about it. Emily tossed her sunglasses onto the console table. You can't possibly believe we're going to entertain this nonsense. There are procedures, Sarah. Board approvals. Due diligence. You don't just stroll in and... We didn't stroll, Ryan said, crossing the foyer with a calm that irritated my father more than shouting ever could. We negotiated, we filed, we closed. My father slapped the folder onto the kitchen island so hard the page edges splayed. You blindsided us. You trained me to announce my failures and hide my victories, I said. I learned. Emily's thumb flew across her phone. The chairman wouldn't sell. Not to you. Not without telling me. He didn't sell to me, I said. He sold to a consortium that respected the company more than its mythology. I led that consortium. Ryan slid a set of printed confirmations across the counter. Notice of ownership transfer, SEC filings, escrow releases. The emails you're holding corroborate all of this. You just haven't read them in order. My father's jaw worked like he was chewing gravel. If this is true, he jabbed a finger at the papers, then you've jeopardized everything. 30 years. 30 years of hiring your friends' sons and calling it legacy, I said quietly. 30 years of teaching everyone to fear you instead of trust you. Something flickered in his eyes. Offense, yes, but also recognition. He looked away first. Emily tried a different tactic, her voice softening into something almost sisterly. Sarah, think this through. You've always been creative. That's not an insult. But corporations, they're a different animal. There are liabilities, unions, vendor relationships. Don't do this to yourself. There it was, the gilded cage with velvet bars. I had lived inside those words most of my life. I've already done it, I said. What you're asking is for me to pretend I haven't. Ryan set a fresh mug of coffee in front of my father, the way you might place a candle into a storm. We're not here to gloat, he said. We're here to offer a transition that preserves the company and the people who built it, even if those people misuse their power. You'll fire us, my father said, not a question. No, I said, surprising even myself with how steady the word felt. You and Emily will stay on as consultants for 6 months. Emily stared at me, searching for the trap. Consultants? Not in title only, Ryan added. There will be guardrails, performance metrics, deliverables, but you have institutional knowledge and we won't pretend otherwise. My father's outrage faltered, confused by the mercy. Why? Because I'm not you, I said. Because I don't need to humiliate you to lead. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence didn't sting this time either. It simply existed, a new law of gravity settling into the room. Emily broke first. Fine, she said, too fast. Let's go. The board will never accept this without a fight. Ryan's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Then let's be on time for the fight. The boardroom was glass and chrome, and that particular brand of expensive air conditioning that makes every conversation sound like it's happening inside a cathedral. The city skyline carved itself into the windows, the logo of Parker and Hall polished into a mirror on the far wall. Executives lined the table with expressions rehearsed for crises: cautious, polite, hungry. At the head of the table sat my father and Emily, as if muscle memory had placed them there before their minds could accept the new reality. The CFO nodded in a way that made me think he'd been nodding his whole career. Legal counsel adjusted his tie like it was a defense strategy. A few of the younger directors shifted, eyes flicking between me and Ryan, with the curiosity of people who sense a power change and wonder what it means for their stock options. Ryan opened. Good morning. As you know, ownership transferred last Friday. We appreciate your time. You can't just walk in here and act like you own the place, Emily snapped. We don't act, Ryan said. We own. A ripple, part laughter, part cough, moved down the line. My father rose, voice swelling with a familiar thunder that had shut rooms up for decades. This company isn't a toy. It took me 30 years to build. And 3 consecutive quarters to bleed, the CFO said, before he could stop himself, then winced at his own audacity. Emily turned on him. Excuse me? He cleared his throat, suddenly fascinated by his spreadsheet. With respect, the modernization budget was diverted to, executive perks, Legal finished, eyes flat. I warned against it. I watched Emily's face calcify, the scramble behind her eyes barely contained. This was the part nobody prepared you for, the moment when your own echo chamber ran out of air. I stepped forward. We're not here to erase history. We're here to stop repeating it. Effective immediately. Salary audits, safety upgrades on the manufacturing floor, a freeze on vanity expenditures, and a reinstatement of the profit-sharing plan you cut 3 years ago. A young director at the middle of the table tried not to smile. The older one beside him failed to hide relief. My father's voice came lower now, the place his anger hid when it was tired. So what now? You leave us to rot in the corner while you parade around like saviors? I shook my head. You stay. As consultants. 6 months. You will document processes, hand off key relationships, and advise on legacy accounts. You don't disappear. You teach. Teach what? He asked, almost to himself. How not to burn down a place you claim to love, I said. Ryan slid a slim folder to each director. Your packets outline compliance milestones, communication protocols, and whistleblower protections. If this is going to become the company it pretended to be in every press release, it starts here. Emily's pen clattered against the table. You think you're winning, she said. But you have no idea what you've unleashed. The media will rip you apart. Investors will panic. And when the headlines turn, don't expect us to save you. I considered her the way someone might consider a storm on the horizon. Inevitable, loud, survivable. If the truth can't withstand noise, I said, it isn't truth, it's branding. A rustle of papers, a clearing of throats, the choreography of surrender beginning to take shape. We moved through motions, votes, acknowledgments, signatures, framework laid like scaffolding, strong because it had to be. When the meeting adjourned, people lingered for handshakes, briefings, private assurances. I did not linger. I walked past my father without a word. He didn't look up. Emily stared at her phone, texting with the ferocity of someone building a bomb she planned to throw from a safe distance. In the hallway, the glass reflected us back. Me and Ryan, side by side, smaller than the skyline, but steadier than we'd ever been. You okay? He asked. I thought victory would taste like wine, I said. It tastes like quiet. He nodded. Quiet is how foundations sound. On the elevator down, a senior manager stepped in and pressed the ground floor, then hesitated. Ms. Wynn, he said, voice low. My wife works in HR. She asked me to tell you. The Whisper Network has waited a long time for today. I met his eyes. Then we'll give it something better than whispers. We reached the lobby, a cathedral of marble and cold light. Outside, the sky had pulled itself into a hard blue. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Another buzz, then another, then a text from an old contact in PR. Seeing chatter. Be ready. I showed Ryan. He didn't flinch. We'll handle whatever comes, he said. We keep receipts. Back home, evening leaned against the windows. My mother called and didn't leave a message. A group chat bloomed with board members sharing bullet points, action items, and a surprising number of thank yous couched in corporate syntax. I made tea because my hands wanted something to do. Ryan opened his laptop and began drafting the employee-wide memo. Straight language, human tone, no grandstanding. I checked the front camera feed out of habit. The street was empty, quiet, expectant. For a second, I thought about the girl who once begged for a seat at this family's table. How she'd shrink herself to fit a chair built for someone else. I wondered if she'd recognize me now. I hope not. My phone lit again. This time, a single line from an unknown number. Hope you like cameras. I stared at it for a moment, then set the phone face down. Emily didn't know how to fight fair because fairness had never been asked of her. I was not afraid of loud. I was afraid of becoming what I had just unseated. Ryan looked up. Tomorrow we meet the floor supervisors. We listen first. I smiled. We rebuild slow. He nodded, approving. Beyond the windows, the city breathed like a living thing. Somewhere out there, a storm was deciding what kind it wanted to be, thunder or rumor. Inside, we drew the blueprint for weatherproofing. The night settled, the quiet held. On the console table, Emily's sunglasses, forgotten in her rush to posture, caught a slice of streetlight and threw it back across the floor in a harsh little line. A reminder, or a promise. I didn't move to pick them up. I let the house memorize the quiet. I let myself believe in it, if only for tonight. By the third week, the storm had a name. Not a scandal, not yet, but the kind of whisper that spreads like frost. Articles started to appear online. New ownership at Parker and Hole. Can a creative save a corporate giant? Some were skeptical, some admiring, all hungry. The headlines didn't frighten me. They fascinated me. It's strange, watching your life become a story other people think they own. I'd learned that lesson once in my family's dining room. I wasn't about to learn it again in print. Ryan's office door clicked open behind me. They're running an interview request queue, he said, voice calm but firm. We'll need to choose one outlet, keep it clean, transparent, not emotional. I can handle that. He nodded, then frowned at his phone. But first, you might want to see this. He turned the screen. A link. A video. A headline in red. Corporate coup scandal. Sarah Wynn's fraud exposed. The words blurred for a second before I steadied my breath. I clicked. A fake news segment played, edited with the precision of malice. There I was, cut between clips from the acquisition announcement and old photos of Parker and Hall executives. A narrator spoke over it, his tone feigning concern. Insider sources claim the takeover was illegal, built on forged documents and shell funding. The evidence? Screenshots with blurred dates, doctored signatures, snippets taken out of context. It didn't take a detective to see who'd fed them the footage. Emily, Ryan muttered. She really did it. I closed the laptop slowly. Of course she did. Pride never retires quietly. My assistant Marissa burst through the doorway then, breathless. Ma'am, the video's everywhere. Social media, finance blogs, even local news stations are picking it up. Reporters are waiting outside. I stood, straightened my blazer, and said what I didn't fully feel. Then we meet them head on. By noon, the press conference was set. Cameras flashed under the sterile glare of overhead lights. The Parker and Hall logo loomed behind me, spotless, new, as if daring the lies to stain it. When I stepped to the podium, I could feel the electricity of rumor thick in the air. Ryan stood just off stage, a silent pillar. False narratives, I began, spread fast when truth threatens fragile egos. The room stilled. Even the cameramen seemed to stop breathing. But facts, I continued, move louder than rumors. I signaled to the tech crew. Behind me, screens flickered to life. PDFs, contracts, timestamp transfers, all public records. Here are the documents verifying every step of our acquisition. Here are the audits approved by regulatory bodies. And here, I paused as a video clip appeared, is a statement from the former chairman of Parker and Hall. On screen, the old man's voice filled the room. It was her integrity, he said, smiling faintly, that convinced me to sell, not her offer, her ethics. The sound of camera shutters was like thunder. I saw her then, at the very back, half hidden by the crowd. Sunglasses, red lipstick, her chin tilted upward like armor, Emily. She looked smaller in real life than she did in my memories. I met her eyes for just a second. Family, I said softly into the microphone, can be complicated, but it also teaches us the cost of pride. The room erupted in applause. She flinched, then turned and slipped out before the cameras caught her face. Afterward, when the crowd thinned and the lights dimmed, I stepped out onto the courthouse steps. The air was sharp, clean, honest. Reporters still shouted questions, but none of them could break through the relief that flooded my chest. Ryan met me halfway down the stairs. His hand brushed mine, steady, grounding. You didn't just defend yourself, he said. You redefined the story. I smiled faintly. Truth has a longer shelf life than lies. We walked to the car as the city pulsed with evening traffic, the sky turning copper over the skyline. For the first time, I didn't feel like the daughter who'd been overlooked. I felt like a woman who had finally stopped auditioning for love. That night, the penthouse windows framed a city reborn in neon and reflection. I sat on the balcony, legs tucked under me, listening to the distant hum of cars and the quiet rhythm of rain beginning again. Ryan appeared with 2 glasses of wine. To closure? He asked. I shook my head. 2 beginnings. He smiled and handed me a small velvet box. Then this belongs here. Inside wasn't jewelry. It was a key, sleek, silver, engraved with one word, Wynn. A new building, he said. For your own company, one with your name on the front. You've earned that. The key gleamed under the balcony light, simple and weighty all at once. And Parker and Hall? I asked. You saved it, he said. Now let it stand on its own. You don't need its shadow anymore. I looked out at the city, the rain tracing silver veins across the glass. Funny, I murmured. I used to think success meant proving them wrong. Now I think it means never becoming them. Ryan reached for my hand. Then we build something better. Something inside me, old bitterness, old hurt, finally loosened. Something that never forgets where it came from, I said. He nodded. Exactly that. The lights of the city stretched endlessly before us, each one flickering like a story waiting to be rewritten. I thought of Emily somewhere out there, nursing her anger, maybe realizing that hatred was the only inheritance she'd ever kept. I didn't wish her pain, just distance. As thunder rumbled far off, I whispered a quiet truth into the night. Peace doesn't always arrive like a song. Sometimes it arrives like silence. Ryan lifted his glass. To silence, then. I smiled. To peace. The clinking sound was soft, final, complete.